Limbo is one of those games that I don't think about often, but when I do think about it, I get the strong urge to replay it. Limbo is one of only 2 games that developer Playdead has released, the other game being Inside, which I have also played. This is the 5th or 6th time I've played through Limbo, and my feelings on the game have remained the same since my first time playing it. I love this game. Limbo is a 2D side-scrolling puzzle platformer, and when you compare it to some other platformers or puzzle games, well, Limbo isn't a very complicated game, it's not a very long game, being 2 to 3 hours long, and there isn't really a story to speak of per se, which might put off some people who are looking for a more substantial experience. But I don't just play a game so many times because it's okay or average. There's something very special about Limbo, and if you're willing to give it a chance, you might discover that same specialness that I did. There isn't much to spoil here, but I will still be talking about the story and the ending, so this video will contain spoilers. You have been warned. Limbo's art style is incredible. I absolutely love it. The black and white aesthetic along with the soft hazy backgrounds create a sense of melancholy that is matched perfectly by the sound design and musical score. The actual interactable elements of the game are all pitch black and very easy to read, and there will never be a moment where you're unsure of what's a part of the background or foreground. Atmosphere is the name of the game here, or at least it would be if the actual name wasn't Limbo. I would describe the atmosphere as beautifully depressing. It actually reminds me of Silent Hill 2 and how the atmosphere just drenches every inch of both games. Atmosphere in games is one of the most important factors for me. It's why I like Fallout 3 more than New Vegas, even though New Vegas is definitely the better game. I just love wandering through the capital wasteland and drinking in the feeling of artificial loneliness. And that feeling of lonely melancholy is something that Limbo might be the best at creating out of any game I've ever played. That is, when it isn't trying to elicit other feelings like, whoa, who are these guys? Why are they trying to kill me? Or, oh my god, run, holy Jesus Christ, save me. Limbo dances expertly between moments of tension, suspense, intensity, and moments of quiet, where the only sounds you'll hear are the pitter-patter of raindrops and your footsteps. The sound design does an incredible job at painting the sonic landscape of this terrifying, bleak yet gorgeous world. There are no words spoken in Limbo, so the sound design carries a lot of the heavy lifting for immersing you in the world. Boxes thump and slide on the ground, saws whir with alarming speed until they slice into your character with the sickening sound of entrails being ripped out of your body. The first half of the game takes place in a forest area, and as you progress through the game you'll pass through a sort of cityscape and finally end up in an industrial type area. And the sound design goes on the same journey with you. The sounds of the forest are not the same as the sounds of the machines later on in the game. Limbo doesn't have a lot of music, but what music it does have suits the game perfectly. It's a very ambient score that blends in with the sound design so well that there's quite a few people who've played Limbo that didn't even realize the game had music. But if you listen to the score on its own, you'll realize that some of the sounds that you thought were part of the world were actually a part of the music. I love the music, and since I've replayed the game, I've been listening to the soundtrack almost every day. Uncertain of his sister's fate, a boy enters Limbo. That is the only narrative breadcrumb that Limbo has given players since its release. And that little blurb isn't even present in the actual game itself. It was a description for the game on the Xbox store. Limbo isn't very interested in telling a straightforward story, and as these things tend to go, players have been coming up with theories about what the actual story of Limbo is for years. There are theories that Limbo is a retelling of Dante's Inferno. There are theories that the boy and his sister died when they fell out of their treehouse, which can apparently be seen in the end screen. And there are theories that the boy died in a car accident and has made his way through Limbo to say goodbye to his sister. And there does appear to be an actual story beyond the blurb, as the game's creator said that there were a couple theories that were very close to what the story really is. Personally though, Limbo never captured my attention with its narrative past my first playthrough. I got to the end of the game and said, oh wait, that's it? Alright then. I don't have an issue with stories being vague or ambiguous, but I still have to feel like there's an actual story being told. And I know that there is one according to the creators of Limbo, but I just don't really care. Inside is similarly vague, however you can obviously tell that there's something going on in that game. There are so many clues and interesting locations and things that happen in the game that let you know that you should be paying attention. But with Limbo, I never really got that feeling. I played through the game and encountered the spider and the other people and the mind-controlling slug and walked through the forest and city and machinery and crashed through the glass to find the boy's sister, and that was about it. I didn't feel any desire to delve deeper into trying to understand what the game is trying to say because I never felt like the game was trying to even indicate that it was trying to say something. I don't play Limbo because of its story, but like I said earlier, a lot of people got a lot more out of this aspect of the game than I did, so hopefully you will too. And it's a testament to how strong the rest of the game is for me to enjoy it so much despite the fact that I don't really care about the story. Limbo's gameplay is deceptively simple. You can only move left and right, jump and grab things. But Limbo manages to craft puzzles and platforming challenges around this simple moveset pretty well. The controls are very tight and responsive, and it just feels good to control the boy and play the game. The game is never that challenging with its puzzles, but sometimes the game requires you to have pretty spot-on timing for your jumps, which can be a little bit frustrating when you figured out what the solution to the puzzle is, but you just need to nail the timing, which can be a little tricky for some puzzles, particularly towards the end of the game. The game regularly puts players in situations where there's no real way to figure out what the correct thing to do is without dying. This type of trial and error gameplay could be irritating if handled incorrectly, but Limbo does a good job of limiting frustration by having plentiful checkpoints that are almost always just a couple feet from where you died, and the game puts you back into the action in only a couple seconds. Still, if you get stuck on a puzzle for whatever reason, dying over and over again will undoubtedly lead to some amount of annoyance, but that's par for the course when it comes to most puzzle games. When you die, there will usually be a pretty violent and horrific death animation, like the boy being impaled on spikes or by a spider leg, or being decapitated by a bear trap or sliced into pieces by a saw blade. These shocking and quick deaths complement the oppressive nature of the game's world, along with some of the macabre solutions to certain puzzles, like rolling a spider's body onto a pit of spikes after tearing off its last remaining leg, or dragging a dead body out of a lake only to slide it down a hill onto a switch that causes the body to be crushed in your place. These kind of puzzles remind me of some of the puzzles in the original God of War games. The game does a good job of showing players how certain mechanics work without telling them. For instance, when the player is introduced to the mind-controlling slug, we first see it on the head of another person, and we can tell from the way he's animated like a zombie that he isn't in control of his own body, as we watch while he walks into a pond and drowns. Then we pass by some creatures on the ceiling that are eating a slug just like the one we saw on the guy's head. Then as we continue on, we get a slug stuck to our head, and we immediately confirm that we can't control the direction that we are moving in. We can control our speed, but we can't stop moving forward. Next, we wander into a beam of light, the slug makes a burning sound, and we turn around, learning that if we go into the light with a slug on our head, we can change our direction. So in a few short steps, the game has explained to us without any words, either spoken or written, how the slugs work and how to deal with them, as we realize that we can move the box underneath the slug-eating creatures and climb on top of it to let the creatures eat the slug. It is a bit unfortunate though that a lot of the game's ideas, like the gravity switches or the magnet switches or the rotating world, don't really build on one another to make puzzles that are multi-step brain teasers like some of the puzzles you'd find in a game like Portal 2, for example. Most puzzles are short and small affairs that use one or two ideas, usually involving the game's physics in some way. Limbo is a short, sweet, and somber gameplay experience, one that's remained with me for 9 years now, and it still plays and feels just as good as it did the first time I played it. The story is the weakest part of the game for me, but the presentation, atmosphere, and gameplay are so strong that my lack of interest in the story doesn't really bother me. I cannot stress just how much I love the atmosphere in this game. It won't be for everyone. It is a very dark and gruesome game, but it's also beautiful in its horror and loneliness. And that's why I've come back to this game so many times. I'm going to give Limbo an 8.5 out of 10. The next game I'll be reviewing will be the next game in the Assassin's Creed retrospective, which is Assassin's Creed Rogue. I will be reviewing Inside at some point, but I'm not entirely sure when that will be, as there's a couple games that I've wanted to play for a while now that will be my reviews for next month. And then there's a few new releases to end the year coming up soon, which also means that there won't be another AC review for at least a couple months as well. If you liked this video, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and commenting your thoughts on the game. Thanks for watching.